Video games. I love them, you love them. But at times we want to play that game, we never can or ever will play it because of cancellation, or in these games' cases, banned in that country. In this video, I'm discussing when the game got banned and if they came over, what changed? Welcome to what I like to call, why was it banned? Let's start the series with a bang as we talk about one of the first games to come to Australia with an official R18+ rating, and that is Mortal Kombat 2011, or in Australia's case, Mortal Kombat 2013. Mortal Kombat isn't an unknown series as most and everyone knows what it is, even people who don't play the games do. Mortal Kombat. Oh, that's the fighting game with the blood and gore, right? Yes. Since the early 1990s, Mortal Kombat has been a well-known series since the get-go, as it was famous for one of its biggest differences to the competition at the time, Street Fighter. And that was the fatalities, becoming a huge staple of the franchise, and you can't do a Mortal Kombat game without those fatalities, now or ever. The thing is though, the series was playable in Australia many years before the 2011 game, the originals being available for purchase and play for many years, and being games you could play at your local arcade. But what was it about MK 2011 that had Australia put their ban hammer on it, you ask? Well, could be many things as per usual for Australia, but this time around it was the fatalities. With the latest consoles out, this was ample opportunity for NetherRealm, developers of the games, and Ed Boon to go, what can we do with this new generation of consoles? And they could do a lot. As the fatalities revealed and the game itself, this put a big problem for Aussie fans of Mortal Kombat. The history of Australia's classifications and restrictions for games was not an old thing, as they had banned games even before this and after, but this has been a pretty big ban as Mortal Kombat was a well-known series at the time. But you could see why. Mortal Kombat 2011 was brutal for fatalities and its violence, and of course, there's a limit to how far you can go before someone says, what the fuck, this ain't coming through to Australia, guys. But what happened, you ask? Did the game stay banned forever, or did Australian fans finally get to play it? Well, in this case, compared to other banned games, this one has a happy ending. 2 years later in 2013, news was going around hard that Australia would now permit games at R18+ rating, meaning more games would be allowed into Australia, and those games developers wouldn't have to stress about if the game is too violent or brutal to come to Australia. Mortal Kombat 2011 finally released as Mortal Kombat 2013, and me and many others were giddy it finally happened. No changes were made to the game from what people were discovering, and this was the full game that NetherRealm means to release, fatalities and all. It was a pretty good moment as I got to sit down and play this game and also watch a review of the game from a now over game review show known as Good Game. Review the game finally, and they talked about how it was finally here but was a bit brutal to show off fatalities from the game on ABC television. So, showed them with toys they had on hand.
And he spins him around like a helicopter.
Spins him around like a helicopter.
And then he lifts this other arm so that he chops all the individual pieces of his body off one by one, leaving just a bleeding torso, which he then throws on the ground. And there's lots of sort of blood around the place. It's quite violent.
Yeah.
To wrap up this video, Mortal Kombat 2011 was one of the success stories of R18 ratings for games in Australia, and thankfully worked well in their favour, as since then NetherRealm has been able to release their games without issues in Australia since then. But that doesn't mean all games were off the radar now that R18 came to Australia. We'll see what other games never made it through classification and why in the next few coming episodes, but until then, be sure to like the video and subscribe as I go further into the depths of banned video games.